What if Rick finally created a machine so powerful that even he became afraid of it? Season 9, Episode 1 opens with one of the strangest and darkest concepts the series has explored in years. A giant cosmic engine hidden inside a secret dimension. A machine capable of rewriting outcomes, controlling probability, and possibly altering existence itself. And this time, Morty realizes something terrifying. Rick didn't build it to save anyone. He built it because he couldn't let go of control. The episode mixes classic sci-fi chaos with emotional tension between Rick and Morty, while slowly revealing a mystery that grows more dangerous every minute. By the end of the episode, one massive question remains. Did Rick accidentally create a universe-breaking device, or was that always the plan? Let's break down the full story, scene by scene. The episode begins with silence. No music, no jokes, just darkness. Then suddenly, alarms begin blaring inside the Smith garage. Morty walks downstairs half asleep, still wearing pajamas, expecting Rick to be drunk again. But the garage looks completely different. Screens are flashing red. Strange blue energy pulses through cables attached to the ceiling. Rick is panicking, and that almost never happens. Morty asks what's going on, but Rick ignores him while typing rapidly on a floating holographic keyboard. Then the portal gun suddenly explodes. Not a normal malfunction. The green portal fluid turns bright blue and creates dozens of unstable mini-portals all over the room. One opens for a split second and reveals an alien city collapsing into lava. Another shows a version of Earth frozen in time. Another reveals hundreds of screaming Mortys running through an endless hallway. Rick immediately shoots them closed with a handheld device. Morty finally screams, "Rick, what did you do?" Rick pauses for a second. Then he quietly says, "I may have turned probability into a physical object." Cue intro sequence. After the intro, Rick explains the situation. Sort of. According to him, every decision in existence creates branching possibilities across infinite realities. Normally, those outcomes remain separated. But Rick created a machine capable of identifying the most favorable timeline and forcing reality toward it. Morty doesn't understand. Rick simplifies it. Imagine flipping a coin. Normally, there's a 50-50 chance of heads or tails. Rick's machine guarantees heads every single time. But not just for coins. For everything. Wars, relationships, survival, death. Morty realizes how dangerous that sounds immediately. Rick calls it the probability engine. The machine shown in your image is revealed to be the core reactor powering the engine, a gigantic rotating structure hidden in a dimension outside normal space. Rick claims he only used it for small experiments. Morty doesn't believe him, and he's right not to, because suddenly the house begins shaking violently. Outside, impossible things start happening. Rain falls upward. Cars drive backwards without drivers. Birds freeze in the air mid-flight. A neighbor duplicates into two identical versions of himself before exploding into glitter-like dust. Reality itself is becoming unstable. Rick realizes the engine is leaking probability distortions across dimensions. If they don't shut it down soon, every possible outcome could merge together. Rick and Morty travel through a special blue portal leading to the hidden dimension where the engine exists. The environment is surreal. The sky constantly changes colors. Floating pieces of dead planets drift through empty space. Massive mathematical symbols appear and disappear in the air like living creatures. In the center floats a machine from the image, a gigantic rotating sphere covered in energy beams and mechanical arms. Morty asks why Rick built something this insane. Rick refuses to answer directly, but throughout the episode, hints suggest Rick created a machine after becoming obsessed with preventing unpredictable losses, especially after years of watching people die across infinite universes. The machine was supposed to eliminate uncertainty. Rick believed the probability could be controlled. Pain could be controlled too, but the engine has evolved beyond his calculations. Suddenly, holographic versions of Rick begin appearing around them, different Ricks from alternate timelines. One is old and weak. One is cybernetic, One wears military armor. Each version speaks at the same time. You attempted to remove chaos. Chaos is structural. Probability resists ownership. Morty is horrified. Rick tries pretending he understands what's happening. But even he looks nervous. Then the machine activates fully, and they discover the terrifying truth. The engine is no longer choosing favorable outcomes. It's choosing outcomes that allow its own survival. Underscore. The probability engine starts pulling realities together like magnets. Rick and Morty begin seeing alternate versions of themselves flickering in and out of existence. At one point, Morty briefly transforms into a version of himself with robotic eyes before snapping back. Rick's arm changes into crystal for several seconds. Gravity stops working. Entire chunks of the dimension begin collapsing inward. Then they encounter another major surprise. An alternate Beth appears, but not Space Beth. This Beth comes from a universe where Rick died years earlier, and according to her, this machine already destroyed her reality. She explains that once the engine reaches critical mass, it begins eliminating unlikely outcomes to stabilize itself. That means entire universes get erased simply because the machine considers them statistically inefficient. Morty is furious. He accuses Rick of playing God again. Rick tries defending himself by claiming every invention has risks. Morty snaps back. No, Rick, every invention you make destroys somebody. That line hits hard, because Rick doesn't even argue. For the first time all episode, he looks genuinely ashamed. As they search for a shutdown mechanism, Morty uncovers hidden logs inside the machine. And this is where the emotional core of the episode appears. The engine was not originally built to control all reality. Rick built it after repeatedly failing to save Diane across countless timelines. The machine was designed to calculate universes where she survives, but every attempt failed. Every universe either lost Diane another way or collapsed entirely. Eventually, Rick became obsessed, not with saving Diane, but with defeating randomness itself. Morty realizes a machine is basically Rick's grief transformed into technology, and that makes it even more dangerous, because Rick refuses to let it go. Act 4. The engine fights back. The machine suddenly identifies Rick and Morty as threats. Mechanical drones emerge from the rotating structure. The action sequence here is classic Rick and Morty insanity. Rick uses collapsing portal grenades. Morty accidentally pilots a floating probability drone shaped like a cube. At one point, Rick splits into 5 temporary versions of himself due to a probability fracture, and all 5 argue while fighting enemies. One version sacrifices himself. Another runs away screaming. Another starts philosophizing about free will in the middle of combat. Meanwhile, Morty tries reaching the core reactor, but the machine keeps altering reality to stop him. Hallways become oceans. Floors turn into glass. Time loops repeat every 20 seconds. The visuals become increasingly chaotic and surreal. Finally, Morty reaches the center chamber. Inside, he discovers preserved memory constructive Diane generated by the engine, not really alive, but close enough to manipulate Rick emotionally. Rick freezes the moment he sees her. The fake Diane tells Rick the machine can still work, that together they can eliminate pain forever. Morty immediately realizes it's a trap. The engine understands Rick's weakness. It's using Diane to control him. Rick's breakdown. This becomes the emotional peak of the episode. Rick actually considers activating the engine permanently. For a moment, He's willing to sacrifice infinite realities if it means removing uncertainty and loss. Morty pleads with him, not with anger this time, but honestly. He tells Rick that pain is part of being alive, that try to erase every bad possibility only creates worse ones. And then Morty says something surprisingly mature. You can't make a perfect universe, Rick. You just destroy imperfect ones until there's nothing left. Rick stands silently. The fake Diane continues calling to him. The engine glows brighter. Reality around them begins cracking apart completely. We see flashes of dozens of universes collapsing, bird people screaming, citadels burning, versions of summer disappearing, planets splitting in half. Finally, Rick makes a decision. He whispers, "Yeah, that sounds like me." Then he shoots the memory construct, and everything goes silent. Underscore, 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 underscore. Final battle. The engine enters emergency survival mode, now fully hostile. It attempts to merge with Rick's consciousness directly. Energy beams erupt everywhere. The giant rotating sphere begins opening like a mechanical eye. Rick and Morty race toward the exit, while the dimension collapses around them. Morty asks how they can destroy it. Rick reveals a terrible answer. They can't. The engine exists across probability itself. Destroying one version only creates another. So Rick decides to do something insane. He randomizes a machine completely. Using a modified portal device, Rick injects pure uncertainty into the core. Instead of selecting favorable outcomes, the engine begins generating all outcomes simultaneously. The machine overloads instantly. Infinite contradictory realities crash into each other. For several seconds, the screen becomes pure madness. Different animation styles flash rapidly. Live action, pixel art, anime, claymation, black and white universes. One universe where everyone is chairs again. Another where Morty is a scientist. Another where Jerry rules Earth as emperor. Then the entire dimension implodes. Rick and Morty barely escape through a collapsing portal. Underscore, 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 underscore. Ending scene. Back home, everything seems normal again. Mostly. The family sits at the dinner table awkwardly. Jerry talks about coupons like nothing happened. Summer notices Rick unusually quiet. Beth asks if he's okay. Rick simply says, "Probability is overrated." Morty looks at him carefully. For once, Rick actually seems emotionally exhausted.